Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society celebrated the completion of their Four Communities exhibit, and that was over the weekend with an open house. The exhibit is in a very small room, which they call the Francis Gadd Gallery. Four Communities exhibit, of course, features Keego Harbor, City of Sylvan Lake Village, City of Orchard Lake, the City of Sylvan Lake, City of Orchard Lake Village. It's so hard to get all that right. I mean, for goodness sakes. And of course, West Bloomfield Township had a chance to get there. There were refreshments, all kinds of people there. It was a great gathering on Sunday around 1, 2 o'clock, and we were there. And of course, Gina Gregory of the Historical Society worked so hard there, was there, and she kicked off our conversation yesterday and tour of this new exhibit when I asked her if it was an important day for the Historical Society.
It really is. We're at the fruition point of a gallery that we've planned since 2020. When we redid this room, we had a new vision then, and it's taken till now to get there. We've got a Four Communities map that was created especially for us by West Bloomfield Township, showing you visually our four communities, which is pretty unique. We haven't had that till now. And then we highlight Francis Gadd, who has made all the difference for us still being here. Her support was very generous, and it's afforded us the opportunity to still exist as a community resource. And so the room is divided, and we start most easily with Keego Harbor, with the sign from the Keego Theater. We've got an exhibit about that now through the years. Then we go on and have the Keego Harbor Hearts of the Lake with their early history. We have their advertising brochure. It's 14 pages that is for sale. And we talk about the name of their group as well as their downtown. And it's was funded by a memorial fund for John Long. So there's a real community connection to it.
Let's talk a little bit, Gina, about and obviously we're hearing these wonderful chimes we'll find out about in a minute,
yeah.
But let's talk about some of these individual components. Maybe we can take a step over to the Keego Theater. And for people that haven't lived here for a long time, they don't really know about the history of this amazing theater in our communities.
So it was there for more than 60 years. It was a theater that it was a community theater. So a lot of old timers, I'll call them, went there as kids to see the movies. Then in the 70s, it was hit by a truck. It had a more colorful history towards its ending days. Then it became, I think, a dollar store, a dollar movie theater.
You know, when you think about towns like Keego Harbor,
yeah.
They all have a post office. They all have a town hall, and they seemingly all have a movie theater that looks something like that. You know, the small towns, you go all across Michigan to small towns, and you know, here in Metro Detroit, a lot of these small towns have lost their theaters in this big urban area,
right.
and they're parts of these signs exist, but the theaters aren't there anymore. So it's important that we remember them.
Right, and this one literally got hit by a truck. In the 70s, with the road widening and that kind of thing. And so we're fortunate that when they tore down the building, we got the sign. It was restored, and it's been here forever.
Was it hard to get the sign in the building here? I mean, you got a huge sign and a little building.
It happened before my time. It's been here always. One of the things we did do is literally during COVID, when we were painting this building and spending hours and hours here, I sat down in these two chairs and had lunch with my husband and said, these are really comfortable. We ought to do something with them. So we came up with the idea of a little theater. Oh, look, that's me. giving we did a tour during COVID of the tour through our 4 communities. So now you can sit down in our little mini theater of 2 seats and watch the story about our 4 communities, which we have in this.
And it's an obvious question, but these look like they are seats that came right out of the Kego Theater.
They literally did, and oh look, my husband's name is here, Rob, and I didn't write that. Yeah. You can also enjoy the Hershey clock that was donated to the Township of West Bloomfield by the Claude Whitmer family. It's from their home, then given to the township, and then when they moved to their new facility at Civic Center, it came here.
So this clock, I presume, was a fixture in the old town hall on Orchard Lake Road that is now being, that building is being, it has another use, but...
Right, it's the Town Hall Place Senior Living. And so last year we had this repaired, so now you can hear it tick and tock and chime, which is really fun. And then we hand crank it. If you come on you might be here and be able to wind the clock.
Well, so we heard it ring. We heard it chime just a little while ago, and likely we'll hear it again before we're done here. It was really quite amazing.
Yeah, and since there's 3 weights, there you take the crank and put it in the 3 different holes, and they're to wind it. And it takes a bit of strength to make that happen.
And here's all the information, of course, for those people that don't have Gina Gregory walking around giving them the tour and telling all the information, everything about the clock and about the family that donated it and the Whitmer family.
Yep. And we had a member who wanted to see the clock repaired, and so he donated to that project, as well as the Trifoli family. And so we're excited that members have stepped up to help us complete our mission more fully.
And what do you think? Is it like 8 feet tall? I mean, people...
and it's also like one of the fanciest grandfather clocks there is. It just happens.
Do you happen? I mean, I hate to ask you questions that I didn't tell you about that you may or may not know the answer. I can't imagine what it's worth now, but any idea what it was, what its cost was back in the day?
I don't, but it's like $5,000 comes to mind. I can tell you though that the silk that lines the door is now frayed. And then you can stick your, I've literally been on them.
You're fine.
You stick your hands in there, and here's how they're hung, and here's their hammer.
It's almost like playing a grand piano when you get the top up off the top and you can hit the keys on the grand.
And so we shined it up. We literally took it apart. And to move it in here, it used to be in the other room, and as we were getting ready to paint the next day, one of our members said, "Why?" And it was hidden. It was hidden because the ceiling was too short. So literally, so a volunteer's up on the ladder, looks in this room and says, "Why isn't this clock in the other room?" And I say, I have no clue why. And the answer is it was in the other room because it was so heavy they didn't think to move it, and this room didn't have that ceiling. So in 4 hours, we literally decided to do it, took it apart, moved it, took out 2 other cases that were smaller than this, and had it done, so that we could then prep the room and be ready to paint the next day.
While we move over to the next display, Gina, this work is, I assume, done in large part by volunteers when there are projects like this.
It is. I was a painter up high. I was up there at 11 o'clock one night, and my husband installed the slat wall. Some of it was pre-existing, but when we decided to do this room, I literally said, do we have enough to do this wall and right there? And we did, so we put it together in one day.
So we've had the Kego area. The clock is part of the West Bloomfield collection.
Right.
Let's talk about what's here.
So each each space is very little, so we've condensed our words and all of our history into a small amount of space, but yet done so that it's concise and you can at least get the flavor of everything. Each topic could have so much more said about it, and we hope that our website will be more robust and that people will be able to use it as well as our archives to learn more, because there's just so much going on. So this started out of me wanting to chronicle our citizen initiatives, and the list got to be so long. And I started to make a list of all the citizen groups, and that list got to be so long that I couldn't even put them all on there. So it's been reduced and reduced, keeping the flavor of some of the things that I thought were important and that were part of my history. My son was part of a group of teens that petitioned West Bloomfield Parks for the skate park. And so when we started thinking about it, I thought there's some history worth telling. We were also of the generation where a student came to the township hall and said, we need an ice cream truck. So Ice Cream for Ice Cream book was written after the township gave permission for ice cream trucks to be used. I live in Pleasant Lake Highlands, you might know, and I've been passionate about that, just looking outside of my community, and we ended up writing, this is our 3rd edition for our 100th anniversary. It's turned into a wealth of information done during COVID with awesome photographs by neighbors and all around our lake. So I'm pretty much into I've been able to use the history locally that I've learned about my neighborhood, as well as what I've learned here, well, through neighbors and through the Historical Society. So part of that I was able to include here, along with the West Acres book, which is a wealth of information that they did for their 75th. This book is 3 times as long as mine. It's such an active community that their history is just amazing. They just chronicle so much of all of their activities through the years. It's a treasure, and we have a couple of them here to sell now, which I'm excited to have available.
So you have these looks here through these books of some of the communities within our community, and then here is, well, there's our old town hall.
There it is.
That was a town hall when I was a little kid growing up, and I love that photograph with the old police cars and amazing. From 1973.
They were all in the same building.
Sure.
Yeah, and there they are lined up in front of it. One thing that I enjoy is our descriptive road maps for Pleasant Lake Highlands. It's just so indicative of the times, of what a resource it was. Close to Detroit Resort, why go further? Beautiful summer home sites in the West Bloomfield Hills. Realization of your Elysian dreams, because all roads lead to Pleasant Lake Highlands from Detroit, Michigan's beauty spot. And you can see by their map, with Detroit, you could take Woodward to Birmingham to Pleasant Lake, or Grand River, just like the trolley did, to Orchard Lake Drive. At the old stone garage, you might turn to get to Pleasant Lake, and in their perspective, Orchard Lake's the same size as Pleasant Lake. You couldn't tell the difference.
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, you talk to
right.
Paul Wilbur, who did his presentation, and you know, that's on CivicCenterTV.com right now.
Right.
A very Pine Lake perspective of that era as well.
Yep. So when we go around the corner, we've got Orchard Lake Village, home of Apple Island, with real estate maps, and Orchard Lake Polka, Orchard Lake Nature Sanctuary, words here about the sanctuary as well, and then the historic places in Orchard Lake with the country club, the church, and the schools. One of the things that we're excited to have available is an Orchard Lake tile that's accurate as a depth map. It's got Apple Island on it, and we have them here to sell. It's well done, well done. And the history of the city with their sailing, and all the sailing was huge on Orchard Lake. 2026 will mark the 100th anniversary of Orchard Lake Country Club that started with its sailing program first before they even built a golf course 27 years later.
Gina, I know this is of a different era, but I can tell you that my family, we sailed on Orchard Lake. We had a boat. We launched it at the boat launch, and that was one of our great activities in the 70s when we were kids.
And the DNR public boat launch is still there.
It is.
People can use that.
And we only have a couple of more moments, but 4 communities. Here's Sylvan Lake.
Yep, with their town hall that's so charming, and their Ferndale Beach. At the bottom, we've got the bridge going over Pontiac Drive in the 40s, but it's still in use today. Sylvan Lake Inn was first. Before it was a city, it was an inn. It burned to the ground in 1903, and people got here by the interurban. So that's included here. And then Whitfield School was a vital part of that community from 1852 on through 1927. It was new, and I think it lasted into the 60s or so. Then as we were preparing this, our archivist noticed in our storage facility that we have Whitfield School sign, as well as the one for Harold Bicking, who was an integral part of their community, and he was the first village clerk and the treasurer, and with a salary of $100 a year, and was a member of the school board as well.
So there you have it, and I had to cut it off because the show is almost over here, but what a great tour. Gina Gregory and the hard work that she has put in, and the handful of volunteers at the Historical Society. Great job. Get over and see the 4 Communities exhibit that is in the Francis Gadd Gallery. And you can see it's a very tiny room, but there's an awful lot packed in there. I think you're going to enjoy. I did shoot a bunch of video of the other things. We will go back and do an hour-long show with Gina at least. There is so much there, and that is only one small part of what you will see if you go take a look over at their facility, of course, right in the campus of the Orchard Lake City offices, right at the top of the hill overlooking Orchard Lake in our fine community. Our history is amazing and rich, and there's a million stories, and I hope you enjoyed some of those, and congratulations to Gina Gregory and all the people associated with the Historical Society on this new opening that they had, and I'm sure they and I invite you to get over, pay them a visit.